seconds from going here. I had a pretty bad sore throat earlier in the week, so I didn't know if I was going to make it today. But anyway, here we go.
Todd and Rob in the afternoon.
Afternoon delight.
With Todd and Rob. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Here we are. We are live and lit. Welcome, Rob. Of course, we're a little late getting off the gun here because Wowza decided to not give me a 30-second start, but a 3-minute start. So,
Wow.
It is what it is.
Oh, well. Tech doesn't always work the way we hope it would.
And we're using Zoom today. So does Rob sound better on Zoom?
Test it right now. I don't know. Do I sound a little better, Todd, on your end?
Sounds the same on my end.
Okay.
So if Rob still sounds funny today, we'll try Riverside next week.
Right. We'll just go through all of these.
We'll go through until the audio clears. But to me, you sound good. You don't sound compressed. So I don't know what's going on with the. I've had some complaints. Primarily, Daniel J. Lewis is saying Rob sounds compressed. He always sounds compressed. Well, we run Skype in no compression mode. We've used Skype for years and not had an issue with it.
The only compression that happens is I've got a Rodecaster Pro here that is running a little bit of processing.
But it sounds good right here. I don't know. You sound like you're right next to me. So
yeah, and you have a compressor running on.
Yeah,
this
I do.
On your end. Right?
Yeah, I've got, and I hear the output of my system. I know what my source is. I know what yours, because I'm getting you right off the post mix.
The same mixer, right?
Yeah. So who knows? Anyway, hey everyone, welcome again. If you're watching us live and lit, we definitely appreciate it. We also want to thank Dave Jones from last week, sent us 5150 sats. He says, we have a lot more ideas for 2.0 features. I just made a conscious decision to slow things down a bit to give hosts and apps some breathing room to catch up. Well, okay. I've got my podcast 2.0.1 list. That's what we called it, Blueberry. And once we get done with our podcast 2.0.1 list, then we will be caught up.
So I did notice that John Spurlock noticed that the Podbean app supports the transcript tag for the Podcast 2.0 project.
Oh, well, that's good.
And same with our publishing side. So I guess we are joining the party, per se. But
so how long is that?
There's more to come.
How long has that been available?
I was told that it was built in a few months ago. So it's just that I don't think anybody was notified.
Wow.
Podcasting 2.0 project that had happened.
So make sure they do a pull request so that Podbean can get on the list.
Yeah, so we're going to make an adjustment to the I think how we're reporting back to the server.
Yeah, okay.
So,
okay,
right.
Cool. Well, anyway, all you have to do is tell one of your devs, because I had to do this because I don't know how to do it. Go over to the GitHub and then pull, and you have to submit something. And then you have to ask Dave to do a pull request, and then something syncs, and then you'll get up on the website. So if you guys have no idea what we're talking about, you can go over to podcastapps.com or newpodcastapps.com. Check out all these cool podcasting 2.0 apps. Mike Dell says bots are scary, 1001 sats. And Dave asked me, and he says, we need to have something on my screen. Well, you can't see the screen now because we're in the two-pane view. That said it would be great to see boostograms show up on those screens behind you, your right shoulder as they come in. So, well, in this show, my right shoulder is obscured from the, and I think that someone said lit videos looking great in Podverse 2112, live and lit 2112. Heather Faye said I 100% listen on podcasts, so I do chores also during all other scenarios mentioned, 500 sats. So I think that catches us up for boostograms. And, Mike Dell says, Rob sounds much better on audio today.
Oh, that's good news.
1,701 sats. So boost came in from that. So, I did. I titled this show on YouTube. So the question that let me give you the title. The title I named this was YouTube Podcast Support ? question mark. And I'm gonna make a prediction, and I hope it doesn't come back to bite me. We've heard all this news about podcasting support in YouTube, where they're making it available so you have to designate it via a playlist or some crazy thing, that it's a podcast. Someone said, well, all they need to do is add an RSS feed. Well, I would not hold my breath.
That's part of the picture, but it may not be. Who knows?
I would not hold my breath, because you basically Google, if you look at the history, Google depreciated RSS besides FeedBurner more than 10 years ago. They walked away. Google Reader was a fantastic, maybe people don't know this, it was a feed reader from Google. It was a fantastic tool.
Right.
I mean, it was like I beloved that tool, and they killed it. So today I use Feedly as my RSS aggregation tool to do show prep and analysis, and I follow a couple thousand RSS feeds that are not podcast feeds. But Google has no RSS support besides what they've done in FeedBurner, which is barely on life support for all these years. So if, and I might eat my words, if Google adds RSS to YouTube, it's going to be a sad day for podcasting.
Well, it could be a sad day for podcasting if they don't, too.
Why you say that?
Well, I think you have to step back and you have to look at the big picture, right? If the direction that we're heading down is these big mega platforms, I have to include Spotify in this discussion too, because I think there's a lot of similarities coming together here. If they do, and Spotify has put it out there that RSS feeds, external RSS feeds, are optional now, right? So that means that over time, podcasting will shift to a model of upload to one particular platform to get your podcast distributed, and it's hosted on that platform too. So that's the model that I'm worried about. If they don't do RSS, that means that means that content is only in that platform.
Good.
It's okay. I mean, I guess that's. I mean, if that's what you want.
Why? Why would we want? I'm selfish.
Well, do we want more and more of this content to be published into siloed platforms? Is that what we want?
It already is going to, because there are some people that are only publishing into Spotify now because they don't know any better.
I realize that, but if we eliminate the availability of RSS, then we're basically guaranteed that that's the outcome.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
So that would create a fractured environment. That also could mean that these platforms don't accept submissions via RSS, or if they do, it's only to get their content.
They've already said
platform.
They're not taking submissions via RSS. They've already said you will have to upload your content at YouTube.
But YouTube may feel like they can scale their platform.
There's no way YouTube is going to allow content that originates there on Amazon and at Apple and all these other places.
I wouldn't. I think we probably thought. I think if you think back to Spotify, right? Don't you think that maybe we got played a little bit with Spotify to some degree in the early
absolutely.
days of podcasting?
Oh, absolutely.
Right. And that's to get the content into the platform, and then you cut off the RSS.
Well.
So right.
Well.
And
but they no.
Done,
but
right?
Hold up, they are. To be fair, Spotify is still ingesting shows via RSS.
Correct.
And if you're on Anchor, you can create a show over there and turn RSS and have a distribution. So, in my opinion, Spotify there's still a good distribution point from the simple fact that they are ingesting RSS. And I can have my show wherever I want Now,
Yeah.
if you decide to go over and host your show on Anchor and are so narrow-minded that you only have your show on Spotify, then that's your fault. That's not my fault. And
No,
if
Great.
in YouTube, there's no way that they are going to ingest RSS feeds. There is no way. No way they're going to do that. That is not their DNA. Their DNA is we want to control it. Upload it to us. We will monetize it. There is no way that they are going to ingest via RSS. Never. Not going to happen.
Then we have to agree to disagree, because I've heard talk like that.
That they're going to
So-
ingest via RSS?
Yeah, to get the content into the platform.
Oh, okay. We'll
They'll
see.
capture that content and then rehost it.
Okay, so here's the next word. Do you think someone is going to be able to create a podcast? Let's be careful here. Let's create audio content on YouTube and get an RSS feed that they can use on Apple Podcasts?
Well, that we don't know yet.
Okay,
I
so
agree with
okay.
Yeah, I'm
Hold
not
on.
saying that we know that. I'm talking about getting content into the platform.
I think there's a higher probability that they will pull RSS feeds than they will ever give an
Create
RSS.
them for external distribution.
Right.
Right.
I am fine.
They don't have a history of doing external distribution.
I am fine if they ingest via RSS. I'm fine with that. I'm cool.
Yeah.
Because guess what? They just become another destination. I'm fine with that. But I don't think, where my prediction lays is that they will not, if you create a YouTube presence that is going to be for audio only, I do not believe they will reciprocate and give you an RSS feed.
Yeah, probably not. Just like Spotify isn't gonna. It's optional now.
Right. Well,
get
at
an
least it's
RSS feed.
optional at Anchor through
Well,
Spotify.
Yeah. So I think what you can kind of see how this might come together is you probably saw the announcement between YouTube and Libsyn.
Right.
Um,
Actually, I
that's-
didn't. Well, I saw
that's-
where you guys are getting stats or something.
Yeah,
Or they.
but think about that from the standpoint of them ingesting RSS and then reporting the stats back. So
As long as the content's on pass through, it doesn't matter.
yeah, but the point of that is that it's not on pass through. Else they wouldn't need to report back.
Well, that's a problem if it's not on pass through. That's
Well,
gonna.
I mean,
That's
why
gonna.
why would YouTube give a stats? I mean, really, at the end of the day, why would YouTube give a stats API back to Libsyn? It's to report plays, right? And if that content is being rehosted, then that's why that link happens. So if they're ingesting RSS, then the stats reporting needs to come back. I mean, to ask the content creator to go in there and look at all their plays and then fill out a spreadsheet and pull, it's not a practical way to do things. And it also depends on what YouTube's goals are around monetization of that content.
Well, that's the problem.
Well, that's part of likely what's going to happen. So,
Well, and here's the problem that I run into again. I think we talked about on the last show. So let's say that you agree to let YouTube pull your RSS feed for your show, and you put a pre-roll on that content, and you have a mid-roll in that content. Now, they cache that. That's going to piss off people just like they did on Spotify. So that pre-roll is going to get stuck in there. I suspect what YouTube will do is say, you can't submit a podcast via an RSS feed unless it has no ads in the front
Right.
of it.
well, that would be a reasonable supposition based on that scenario, right?
Okay,
I mean,
but also based
doesn't-
on
it doesn't make sense for anyone
But-
to have dynamic ads get included in that content going into YouTube if they're going to wrap other ads around it.
but at the same
Doesn't
token,
make sense.
same token, you're going to get screwed because they've got these rules that you have to have X millions of listening hours or whatever it is, whatever their monetization rules are, in order to get advertising. against YouTube content. They're not going to change the rules for podcasters to say you're going to get monetization with fewer listen minutes than a YouTube channel.
Yeah, I don't know that we know the answer to that.
That's my
What
prediction.
that might look like for audio only content.
And they have a horrible history of demonetizing shows. You say one wrong thing in YouTube content, and you are demonetized.
Right.
So,
thus the other part of the concern that we should all have in the industry. Of
so
putting
if
more and more
if
content
you-
into a platform like that.
if then here's my supposition. If your business model for your podcast solely relies on advertising, then you would be a errand's fool to list your show on YouTube. Because what happens when you send your audience that listens to you today on an Apple Podcast app, Fountain, Overcast, Pocket Cast, where every one of those listens is monetized, and then you say, hey, by the way, you can listen to the show on YouTube, and none of those listens are monetized, and you give, if you get lucky enough to get monetized, you get pennies on the dollar for that inventory.
Well, you're not getting monetized over there now.
But here's the deal:
anyway.
you would, if
Right.
if and we're just making predictions, but you would
Right.
be a damn fool, and I will say that again: you will be a damn fool to put your content on YouTube without your full ad load in your media.
Well, that's happening today, Todd. I mean, it's already happening with audio content into YouTube.
My shows are monetized.
Well, that's because you're doing host reads.
That's right.
I'm talking about dynamic inserted content, which is where the industry is
Well,
shifting towards.
But again,
right?
but again, why would I allow them to have to make me meet a volume level? See,
Because they can.
Well, they
because there's
can,
YouTube.
so they can go pack sand. They can go pack sand.
But everybody's going to be clamoring over there to get their show over there,
Well,
and
then
they're
they're-
going to drop their pants to get it done, just like they did with Spotify in the early days.
Then guess what? Be careful what you wish for.
Right.
Be careful what you wish for. All of a sudden, you shift a percentage of your audience to YouTube, and that if your model is advertising, if your business model is advertising, and you shift a portion of your audience, you shift 10, 15, 20% over there, and you say the F word, and their a logarithm picks that up and pulls every ad from your show.
Yeah, it's called brand safety,
Well-
brand suitability. Those algorithms are coming to podcasting in a big way too.
Okay, well,
There's so many layers to this conversation, Todd, that we're going to talk about it more at Podcast Movement too.
but here's
I
the
didn't-
but let's
Nobody knows about that yet. but
let's
that's
continue to
coming.
talk about
Right.
this conversation.
I'm going to.
I think again, if you are a serious podcaster with a serious business model that relies on advertising, putting your podcast without your advertising, pre-rolls included, as pass through into YouTube, you would be a fool to do that. Now, if they
Well, it
can,
won't be passed through; it'll be cached. So,
well, I'm
just to be
saying
clear. Right.
that's why I'm saying it has to be passed through because your ad's going to change.
But
So,
they're not going to support that.
well,
so.
then you would be a fool to send your content over there.
Yeah.
Why would you do that and give up money?
Well, the promise is that the advertising opportunities are going to be available through YouTube.
Okay,
right,
there's
Todd?
no promise. Here, let's set this straight. Let me
But
Google.
That's the carrot. That's the carrot. That's
What,
being
okay, let me
dangled.
Google
Right.
what is the percentage of YouTube channels. Oh, I'm going to do it right here.
Oh,
That are monetized. What is the percentage?
Of audio shows, or are you talking about any
Any.
shows on YouTube?
What is the
Okay.
rate of monetization of YouTube? How many YouTubers are monetized? They don't have the number.
I think Google protects that information. I mean, if I were them, I probably would too.
So, you have to have a crazy amount of views over there.
Todd,
Okay, you
that
have to have
explains a little bit of why this is taking so long. with
You have to
YouTube
have- you
deploy.
have to have-
It's complicated.
4,000 watch hours a month.
Mm-hmm.
4,000 watch hours a month before you can even be considered for monetization. This show has never been monetized on YouTube. We don't get 4,000 watch hours. 4,000 watch hours. So if you have to have 4,000 listen hours each and every month, the majority of podcasters out here who have less than 5,000 listeners, they will never, never be monetized on YouTube. Never. Whereas, let's say they had 4,000 subscribers and 2,000 of them moved to YouTube. So let's say 2,000 go over there to listen to the show, which I don't think is going to happen anyway. But let's just say 2,000. That's 2,000 that could have been monetized everywhere else. Now, if the argument is, oh, you're going to gain 2,000 new subscribers, well, it has never happened for this show in 10 years.
Well, Todd, I think you have to back up and you have to realize that programmatic advertising has been scaling for the last few years.
Sure.
I started working on programmatic at Spreaker back in like 2017 or something like that. And it is gradually growing and becoming more important to the medium. And it's certainly possible that YouTube could support programmatic type advertising into podcasts. And guess
Sure.
what? That advertising tends to go into smaller shows.
But,
Right.
oh,
YouTube could do the same.
guess what it will do? It will go into those smaller shows, and you won't earn a dime.
Well, it's all
You-
a factor of scale.
You
right?
will
So,
earn
right.
nothing. Yeah,
Right, it's
oh,
all a
it,
factor of scale, Todd.
it-
right?
it
I mean,
will-
It's the same thing with the programmatic today
it-
on other platforms.
it will have.
Right.
Okay, but Rob, today, this show, for every pre-roll we get, we are monetized. For every pre-roll ad that goes to the show, we get 70% of that.
Right.
For every ad that will go into YouTube and have an ad in front of it, we will get 0. This is the point I'm trying to make. Okay, go over and be on YouTube. Knock yourself out. We're on
I
YouTube.
don't know that may or may not be true, Todd. So I don't think that the product has been rolled out yet. For
Okay,
us to
I know that. I know that. But
Right.
if we look at YouTube's history,
Well, yeah.
there will be a qualification level.
Mhm.
They're going to, hey, they want some money for hosting that media.
Right.
So they're going to run home to mama and set requirements. Now, if they
Well,
come
Todd,
out,
if they do that, then this whole thing's going to fail for them.
oh,
so,
if they come out of the gate, if they come out of the gate in day one, if they come out of the gate and said imagine the regular YouTube podcast YouTubers being pissed off. Imagine, they're not going to do this. Imagine they come out and said, "Hey, if you just put your content up as audio only, we will pay you from day one. You will earn money from day one. You can be part of Google AdSense. You can be monetized immediately."
Mhm.
Everyone's got
Yeah,
a
but-
regular video YouTube channel over there is going to revolt because they're going to say, "Hey, what the hell? I had to have 4,000 viewer hours a month to be monetized, to qualify to monetize. I had to build my channel. There is no way, no
they
way."
could do that, Todd. You're right. They could do
I'll
that.
put a Benjamin down that they are going to set some. very high. Now for a big show
Mm-hmm.
like Rogan or whoever, hey, they're going to make money right off the bat. But for a small show, this is a bad business move. We have to start thinking as business people, as podcasters. We have to quit chasing these sparkle. You know, it's like a fish hook, right? That's got the little spinner on it, little silver thing. We're like fish going in the water trying to bite at the hook, right?
Yeah.
We have
It's
to
a competitive landscape now more than it was in the early days.
we've learned from what Spotify has done. We have to learn as podcasters
Right.
what makes business sense for our show. We've got 10,000 sats from Papa HD, Rob Todd. Thank you for sharing these conversations with the community. I almost have my PhD in podcasting. Well, absolutely. Welcome to your. We'll get that certificate right out
That's
to
what I
you.
was going to say. We'll get it out to you right away. Here.
But here,
yeah, but do you have to pass a test, Todd?
hey, listen to this show long enough to get your PhD. So this is my point, that we have to be more decisive, and we have to be more. Okay, there's a lot of podcasts right now that don't know this. They went over to Spotify. We get this question several times a week. I went over to Spotify and submitted my show. I'm getting X thousands of listens over there. How come I'm not getting any monetization on that? Well, it's because they're caching your show.
And they didn't tell you that.
And they didn't tell you you're caching
Right.
your show.
Right.
If you'd applied through Blueberry or Libsyn or whoever else has an
Or-
agreement, we're
yeah,
on
or Podbean, any of them.
we're
Right.
on pass-through, meaning every time someone hits play, they get a fresh rendition of your show, and the advertising goes with
Just
that
flows.
episode just like it was. But when you went to Spotify Direct, you screwed yourself. Well, how do I change that? Well, you have to have your show delisted, removed over there.
Yeah.
Then you got to come back over here and apply. So
Well, I mean, Todd, you're in the middle of it. You know why that happened.
right.
And it's happened before with other companies too,
We-
where the industry, the hosts, pushed back and said,
Well,
it's got to be passed through.
the podcast host went back and said people are not going to apply and have their show listened to unless you put us on pass-through. And we have agreements, written agreements.
Yeah, that
pass-through-
says it's passed through.
Pass-through
Right.
signed. I have a piece of paper with Spotify and my name on it. It's an agreement.
Yeah, and we've turned down distribution opportunities, at least prior companies that have, for that exact reason. Or there had to be an advertising deal associated with it.
Right.
So this isn't new, and I think when we talk about this, Todd, and I'm not trying to be negative about
Sure.
YouTube or Spotify, really, at the end of the day, I just think that the community needs to know what's likely developing here. So we as a community can choose whether
Right.
or not we want to say no.
But Rob, you know what? People say, Todd, you don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Well, people point at us and think, well, these are the old curmudgeons. They don't know what they're talking about. This is the new thing. This is the new direction. This is the
It's
the
I've
future, but-
I've been sold a pack of lies for the last 3 years that YouTube is number 2 discovery place
right. But that's not true.
or number 1 or whatever BS is being
I
fed.
think it's number 2, but it's,
Right.
Yeah, but why is that? It's because people perceive some of the content over there as being a podcast when it actually is not.
So,
that's why.
if it was, this show would get a heck of a lot more views on YouTube than we would anywhere else. 1,111 stats from Nike Dell. You don't have to be everywhere, and likely shouldn't. Kind of goes against that phrase that pays, I don't care whether they listen as long as they listen. If your business model is not advertising, you're not going to sleep about it. This is like, go put me on YouTube. I'm good. So this
Yeah, I think it
this
does.
this conversation only applies to those whose business model
Right.
is advertising. If your
Those
business
that don't care about monetization or making money
Right.
on their podcasts and
Right.
stuff, they probably don't care.
if your
about
business model is value for value, you might even care there because you're not going to be on Super Chat. You're not going to get a Super Chat unless you have 4,000 viewer hours a month. And then you
You're
can
not
get
going to get sats.
and then you'll have to go and you'll have to give them a percentage of that Super Chat because they take a cut on that. I don't know what it is. I've never actually. What is the cut on Super Chat? Let's look that up. Because guess what? On Super Chat. Okay, I'm typing here. I bet it's 30%. Let me look. What is the cut on? So yes, they take 30%. Creators receive 70% of Super Chat revenue. The 70% is calculated after local sales taxes and app store fees on iOS are deducted. Transaction costs, including credit card fees, are currently covered by YouTube. So it's probably truly like 60% before you're all done. So here's the beauty. We have Super Chat right now in podcasting, but it's called Boost.
Right.
So, and guess what? We don't take 70%. When you do a Boost, you essentially get about 97, 98% of the boost. So it really blows me away that, well, I guess I don't know what I'm talking about. So we will see. We will see what happens over there.
Well, and we haven't even talked about Spotify here. And then the other third wheel in this is TikTok. But
yeah, well,
and both of those platforms, both Spotify and YouTube, are doing things just like Facebook is to fight against the growth and popularity of TikTok. And TikTok, based on rumors, I can't confirm anything. They're working on a podcast product as well, but we shall see on all that.
I'm under NDA with ByteDance, so I can't say anything.
I know I'm not going into any details either. I'm just saying that there might be something that these other platforms are worried about, like a YouTube and a Spotify, that they want to compete better against. So that's
a whole great conversation to have at some point. In itself,
it is a great conversation to have at some point, and it could get very interesting as you look to the future when it comes to podcasting. And this is why I raised this topic to some degree, because I'm not sure that, I think that you can see what's happening here between especially if you look at it from a content creator perspective. Spotify announced that I think Anchor as a brand is going away,
right,
and they're going to roll that functionality into what's called Spotify Creator Studio,
right,
which seems to have a very similar name to YouTube Studio, right?
Knock yourself out.
Right. So you can see what may be happening here. Spotify is embracing video. They're obviously embracing video, or
only if you
audio
only
and
if you
video.
Only if you do it through their Creator Studio. You can't do it via RSS.
Right. You can't submit a video
Right.
podcast via a RSS link, which is another clue about, who knows what's going to happen on that front.
And by the way, I have heard ads, because I look at content over there all the time. I've heard ads against my shows, this one included. I've heard ads run up against this podcast as pre-rolls.
Even Spotify.
Yeah. So they're already monetizing podcast content over there and not giving creators a dime. So
that could happen on YouTube. Sure.
Oh, it's going to happen on YouTube. They are a company that has one goal in mind and one goal only: to have a good shareholder stock report every quarter. They have to meet their numbers.
Right.
They have to meet their revenue. Everything they do is revenue driven. They love creators because they generate revenue for them. And how many of you have pay YouTube $16, $17 a month to be on YouTube Premium so you don't have ads? So, Rob, here's what I tell you to do: go run an incognito window and play this show in an incognito window, and watch the 2 ads that are run up against this show every time it's played. There's 2 15 to 30-second ads that are played against this podcast on YouTube every time that someone isn't paid, and I get 0 from that.
Right. And it probably says in the terms of service, buried somewhere on page 55 and fine print.
I get the ability to live stream. I get the ability to post my videos up there. It's a price of entry. I understand it. Now, what does it gain me for listeners? Well, we got this cool live audience, but most of them now are tuned in via Lit and Live. They've abandoned Facebook and YouTube. They all went to the apps at podcastapps.com. So that's beautiful to me, because guess what they're getting to do that they couldn't do on Facebook? They get to super chat me with a boost.
Right. Yeah, and Todd, this all maps to an earlier discussion that we had a few weeks ago about HLS streaming.
Right.
And the industry is, on the monetization side, are rabid about, streaming ads, right? Well, streaming ads is YouTube and Spotify.
Of course.
So and other platforms too may want to get involved in that too if they're on the music side.
But again, I go back to the history of YouTube, and you say one thing wrong in your show, you will be cut so quick.
Right.
You talk about anything, it could be very obscure, because as Daniel says, how do you need to say a logarithm? I say logarithm. I leave the A off. I've done that for years, so it's a Toddism, so sue me. The algorithm looks at your words, and says, oh, they got too political. Oh, they got on content that, isn't brand safe. And whereas
misinformation.
Normally, you would probably have that slid through on a regular advertising deal. It wouldn't be that tight of a focus. But you say one thing, and guess what? You build up strikes in their system. So if you build up a content strike in their internal algorithm, you will be suppressed in where you're placed as far as being able to be seen. Why subject yourself to those politics? Continue to build your brand on your .com. Be able to push your content where it's not censored, where it is not demonetized, where you're not drove down in the logarithms.
That's a leading question that you're asking there, Todd. Where might we suggest to maintain this? There is an alternative reality that's developing out there.
It's not an alternative reality. It's what exists today. Open podcasting.
No. Well, it is, but no, I'm talking about if you're going to work with a consumption platform, there is a alternative economy developing out there, or
right.
alternative distribution platforms.
Well,
one is growing, and it's called Rumble.
Oh, I ain't worried about the problem is there's not a lot. Go over to Rumble and find me audio podcasts.
Well, that's my point, Todd. Is that's not over there, but there's a lot of video podcasts that are over there.
Well, I guess we should put our show over on Rumble.
Right.
But at the same point, is Rumble paying people?
I believe so. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's interesting. But again, I'm really.
When was the last time you used their app? It looks a lot like YouTube right now.
I haven't been on. I don't think. To be honest with you, I don't think I've ever been on Rumble.
They did a major update about 3 weeks ago, and it looks a lot like YouTube.
Well, and there's no more bigger flattery than copying someone.
Well, it is, but it does beg the question. That platform does not censor with moderation, and they've stated it in their policies. So what you're starting to see is shows
until they're delisted by Apple. They have to
yeah.
have some moderation, Rob, because if they don't,
Well, it's the same terms of service that maybe you or I have on our platforms.
well,
It's not the level of censorship that we've seen on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter.
what's Trump's thing? Truth Social or whatever it is.
Right. That's
They
still
they
live.
could not get on until they made some. How
Yeah,
should?
there has to be some content
Yeah.
moderation, but there's also talk about getting rid of the 230 clause too. And
Well,
that will cause a domino effect that will force everybody to clamp down on content.
well, the 230. It's not necessary where they're having a challenge in the Supreme Court right now, where people are having, even the justices are having challenges with, is that in a normal Google search, they just present links. So they're protected because they really are not. It's where you now type into Bing and it writes back to you suggestions, and that is where the AI stuff could be foreseen as if they tell you to turn right and drive over a bridge that's no longer in existence, could be a problem. Or that's where the 230 clause is going to be affected from the AI standpoint. Well, that's a whole nother 3 hours worth of conversation. But
But it is related to this topic, though. If podcasting wants to retain its openness,
Right.
and lacking in censorship and all this stuff, which I think, in a fairly significant degree, we have today.
if you're running programmatic and your show's being looked
That's
at
where it could be
and saying,
censored,
"Oh,
right.
this episode is not brand safe," have you essentially censored it? And is it
Yeah,
not?
but that's only going to demonetize. It's not going
Well,
to take it down.
I know, but let's
Right.
take it a step further.
It
because
could be
that-
used for pure censorship takedown. That same
Well,
technology. Right.
if someone's going to say you demonetize my content based upon what some AI thought, that's illegal. So I think it's a whole can of worms. We'll see where it leads. But here is the simple fact. YouTube, Spotify, and I'm sorry, Amazon, everyone else.
And where's Apple in all this?
Okay.
That's-
Hold on a second.
That's the next conversation.
Hold on a second. They do not have podcasters' best interest at heart, in my opinion.
YouTube,
I'm saying all these platforms that
all these platforms.
do not have that monetize against our content. They do not have they're after making sure they make revenue. Whereas Apple, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Fountain, all these great, well, Overcast is not yet podcasting 2.0, but all these apps have the creator, the podcaster first, and the listener and podcaster co-equals.
Right.
And it's simple. I hear Adam screaming right now. He's like, "You can't monetize the network." That's what he's saying. You can't monetize the network. Abandoned advertising. Go value for value.
Right.
We were pretty amazed, Rob. We announced in our Facebook group, and so it's public. It's early days yet. On the number of taking this show out of the equation, remove us and remove Geek News Central. Just in the short time that we've had value for value turned on for Blueberry podcasters, they've earned about $600. So it's still very early. People are training their listeners.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that I'll be excited when that's $6,000 a month or $60,000 a month. But you got to start somewhere. And the first few weeks that this turned on, minus the donations from this show, because we could add a couple $100 to that number easily. About actually 625, because I looked at our 3% that we're taking and I backed it out,
Mm-hmm.
and I was impressed, couldn't believe it. So it's still early days, and small numbers of shows are adding this on. I haven't got the ability to see across how many shows. I got to figure out how I can figure that out. But I was like, okay, there is an alternative here that is a viable solution.
Yeah.
Where you can monetize however you want. But okay, so we beat a dead horse here. What do you say, ladies and gentlemen, about our conversation here with YouTube?
There's so many layers to this conversation. That's the challenge.
And be
to
honest with
fully
you-
grasp what's happening here. It's a multi-layered conversation.
And believe me, I am sick and tired of talking about brand safety.
Well, now they want to shift it to brand suitability, Todd, because what they found, I believe, is that the brand safety thing is a loaded term that
And here's another thing they're starting to look at,
gets people upset.
and which cracks me up. Todd, we want to reach all the cat shows you have. Oh, really? That's new. You want to buy cat shows? I'm using that as an example. It wasn't cat shows, but we want to reach all your cat shows. Oh, when did you guys start buying by category again? Well, we think this is a good idea, and I just roll my eyes. What is old is new again. And we're not trying to reach the 25-year-old single woman with no kids that has a college degree. Now we're trying to reach cat owners, Ford owners, gun holders, weed smokers. They want the groups now, and they want shows by category again. Huh? Amazing.
That's a user identification to some degree.
So I don't get
mapping of data, Todd.
I don't get too many brand safety questions. Thank goodness. But it's just like,
But is it suitable, Todd? Is it suitable for the brand? Is the question here, right?
Brands have gotten too wound up. You know what it is? They have people that are 35 and under that are worried about this woke culture.
Oh, I think there's a big part of that that's linked to trying to identify these hot button topics that people don't want to be associated
Every
with.
podcast should have hot button topics. If you're not doing a hot button topic within your show and pushing buttons, you're boring.
Right. Just like what happened to Don Lemon the other day with his mention of women in their prime.
It's
right?
not. Hey, guess what? Guess what? Open your mouth, get in trouble. So
Right.
it's like,
Yeah. You got to be careful of this stuff. I mean, there's some common sense going on that you should apply to life in general.
right.
I'm surprised that he said that, but
So
I don't know it was appropriate for the conversation that he was having.
well,
so,
he's lucky. I guess he's lucky he still has a job. We'll see
yeah,
for how long.
is the question. Yeah.
Until he says something more. All right, so moving topics here. So you sent me a text and said, hey, we're going to be on the live stage, blah, 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 blah. And I just assumed for NAB.
Well, I'm working on that too.
And then I was
So,
like, I got the Podcast Movement newsletter today. And I was like, oh, that's for Podcast Movement. So what's the story
Rob's
there?
been busy.
Yeah, when did this transpire?
Actually, I got word that we had a spot on the stage just like Monday.
So
It happened pretty fast. Both us and James Cridlin with his Pod News Weekly is going to have a live on stage episode recording as well. His is is on Thursday. Ours is on Friday.
So we're going to do our best, I guess, to try to be actually live, lit and live. We'll see.
Yeah, we can try. I did get word from them that they will be recording audio and video of our session. So, but we may not be able to get the audio and video from them for probably a week. is what he said.
So,
So
but
if we wanted to do something live, we could, as long as we don't get in the way of what they're doing.
so maybe we can tap in like we tapped in before.
On
Are we,
audio.
are we going to be on a
Audio.
big stage or anything? Or
It's a decent sized stage. I'm not sure how big the room is
Okay.
actually, but it's probably, it's a normal size room probably.
so are we like during the lunch hour or something? Is that what we got? Or
No, it's actually 11 a.m. on
Mhm.
Friday the 10th. So it's just
Oh.
prior to lunch.
Okay.
So that's a decent time.
Friday the 10th at 11
the 10th, it's
a.m.
the last day. It's the last day. And they gave us an hour and 45 minutes, Todd.
Wow. So wow. How's that possible? Um, okay.
I guess it's possible when you're the last session, probably. on
Oh, are
that
we the
stage.
last session on Friday?
On that stage, probably.
Oh, I see. All right. So, have you been reaching out to anybody to be on?
Yeah, I've had some conversations, but I haven't nailed it down yet. But I was trying to figure out my topic first that I wanted to cover, and then try and find the appropriate people for that.
I think
So,
YouTube would be a pretty appropriate hot topic.
well, yeah, all these guys that are taking things to the next level. So, yeah,
You call that
it's just
what do
finding
you
out
mean
who
next?
those.
What do you mean next
people are.
level?
Well, the next level that they think
They're
is-
trying again.
is innovation in the podcasting space is the level they want to take it
Okay.
to, Todd.
I would not necessarily define it as innovation.
No, and more accurately, it's probably a regression, actually. So I think that RSS was innovation. So
Boy, there's
if you think about it from a big media perspective, right?
right. Well, we probably have some people that are. I'm looking at our. Trying to see if we've had any boost come in. I'm watching two different systems.
Well, Todd, I wanted to want to talk about one other topic
Sure.
too, and this could be something that we can dive in a little deeper
Uh-oh.
at Podcast Movement. Is given what we're hearing, what do you think is the likely next move from Apple?
Oh. I'm not under NDA with Apple.
I'm not either, but I think they're the big dog in the medium still, even though some would say that YouTube is a bigger dog,
I
but
have
not in podcasting.
I have given Apple some feedback. We haven't, it's no secret we have a meeting with them on a regular basis, largely to track the status of Apple Premium.
Right.
So while I won't say what goes on in those conversations, but I do think that they definitely are really currently focused on Apple Premium. They want podcasts to understand there's availability there for them to do something, to earn money for their shows and either ad-free episodes and then we've had a fair number of podcasters that have started some premium shows on Apple.
Mhm. Sure.
They have not indicated to me at all what's on the horizon. But
Yeah, I haven't heard anything either.
but
I'm just
but I would
wondering how should they react
Oh.
to what they're seeing happen is really the question.
Ted, guys, ladies. I think honestly that they'll never implement the value for value stuff in podcasting 2.0, and they may not be able to implement anything in the people tag because they're worried about people sneaking stuff in there they shouldn't. They're like putting Joe Rogan as a credit to be a guest on a show when he's not. So
They already have their own technology for
well, they have stopped, to my understanding, of taking any
supporting it.
more players. So I think it'd be simple for them. But again, you got to think about Apple's again a public company and they got to make money. So the Apple Premium piece is definitely along those lines.
They also have to think about their security layers too and how they do
Right.
things,
So,
which is a big gating factor.
And I don't know how much of the podcasting 2.0 spec they would be able to adopt if they wanted to. But it's here's what they need to do, and we've all wanted it for many, many years, is have an Android app.
Mhm.
I think that in itself just from being Apple and being able to promote it would drive a huge number of Android listeners to, there's a lot of great Android apps, but it's just like Google has done themselves such a disservice. They could have fixed this years ago by having a dedicated podcasting app that was delivered on every Android device, just like Gmail and Google Search is.
Mm-hmm.
But it was never a priority. YouTube is the priority, and that's why podcasts are going to YouTube. So,
right.
It's time. It's time for a Apple Podcast app on Google on Android. It's and maybe there is some political thing there that, but now with premium, why wouldn't they? But then again, maybe it's a problem with Apple Play Store and conflicts of cash and who takes what for what. They wouldn't be able to have premium on, so it doesn't make sense financially. I don't know what's next for Apple. They've got a great team, so. Here's one thing that's really cool is they have finally the chickens are about ready to come home to roost because they're introducing the we will know 100% now what is actually Apple Podcasts and what is not Apple Core Media because they're implementing that new.
That's right.
I guess it's an identifier.
Right. The identifier. Right.
So we'll be able to see very, very shortly what the true Apple Podcast market share is outside of all the other apps that are still using Apple Core Media. Matter of fact, I think John Spurlock put together a list of apps that should be. Matter of fact, I wonder if I can find that. This is
stopped using the Apple Core Media user agent, right?
Right. Let me see if I can find John's list.
It's still not an extensive list of big apps, though.
No, but it is a.
It's growing.
Let's see. Is it JS? Yeah, maybe JS. Someone out there that's listening live. Tweet me what John's. Oh, I found it. He's at JS. So okay, here, this is much better. Other than Apple Podcast apps that don't change the default Apple Core Media UAR, Podbean, Castro, Fountain, Podcast Republic, Moonbeam, Playapod, Pods, Bullhorn, Luminary, Listen App, Audible, Podyssey, Radio Online. These are a bunch of podcast apps that are using the Apple Core Media still as its identifier. As a matter of fact, you should send that over to your team, Rob. Make sure that they update the Podbean app and do a correct identifier. Because But there's we can break out the Podbean app,
right?
So there's other ways to break some of this stuff out. So, but we will see. I bet you the Apple Podcast percentages are still very, very high, even after they do this. Let's see. Oh, there's the document.
Yeah, it does say 63% of all Apple Core Media traffic is not Apple Podcasts.
Who says that?
That's what it says in Pod News.
Okay.
It says we've recalculated figures based on the last 90 days. It says 63% of all Apple Core Media traffic is not from Apple Podcasts.
So 63% is coming from Podbean, Castro, Audible, Podcast Republic, Moonbeam, Playapod,
all the other apps.
Pods, Bullhorn, Luminary, Listen App, Fountain, Podyssey, and Radio Line? Bullshit. They don't make up 63%. I've got an Apple Core Media database right here of the apps that announce themselves that have the Apple Core Media reporting. But I guess we'll see what happens.
This is a report that was put out by James Cridlin on April 24th, 2021.
I remember seeing that. So when they released 16.4, we'll know very, very quickly within a month what their true percentage is. Be able to break it out and segment it. But I don't think it's of their total. 63% comes from other apps.
Yeah, so this change was as of iOS 16.4 due out in the second quarter, so I guess it's out as of now.
No, it's not out yet.
Or wait, what are we up to 16.3? Is that what we're up to right now?
Pre-16. Anyway, we'll have to see.
Let me see if I can see it. Yeah, okay, I'm up to 16.3.1.
Yeah.
So it's still not here
It
yet.
comes out a month or two or whatever.
Right.
So we'll see. We'll see what it is. And then, then there'll be no more speculation in the sky. We'll have some real numbers with a real, and what's happening is
was there a danger that Apple's going to fall from the top spot? It's going to be taken over by Spotify.
No way. Never. Impossible. Not going to happen.
It could knock off a couple of points off of Apple.
Oh, it's going to knock some points off, but they're not going to become number 2. Not on our platform, they're not. There's not a chance. Nary a chance.
So what's the more recent number on your platform for Spotify share?
It's still 6-7%. Matter of fact, it's dropped. It's dropped.
It's only 6-7%.
Yep.
I think the last time I asked you that, it was over 9.
It's dropped. They've lost market share, at least for us, for the shows that we measure.
That's interesting. Are all shows getting submitted over there, or is there a big chunk of shows on your platform that isn't getting submitted?
I think it's in the high 90s that get submitted over there.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, it's one of those places you got to be.
It certainly is. That certainly is the case. I agree.
Yeah. Matter of fact, John Spurlock just said Rob sounds much better this week. So maybe it was Skype.
When I've got a professional setup here, it isn't like
it might have been
cheap here on my microphone.
It might have been Skype smashing you. Who knows?
Something.
So
something.
They made a change somewhere.
Right. I mean, I wasn't going to go out and spend more money on my microphone to get it better for the show.
No. But
so anyway,
it's there's a lot of stuff moving here, and to be honest with you, I've just been heads down. It's been between talking to podcasters and trying to stay ahead of my dev team. Oh my God, I've been busy, very, very busy. And then Monday I was out. I had my throat was on fire. I'm surprised I can talk today.
You sound okay.
Yeah, well, I drank probably 5 gallons of water yesterday, so
that'll flush it out.
Yeah, whatever it was, but I'm doing much better today. Just my nose is running.
So I thought it was interesting that Matt Cutler has left Spotify. I don't think we've talked about that, but he's the one that came with the acquisition of Parcast and has been managing the Joe Rogan deal. He was the head of audio talk shows and partnerships at Spotify. So he's left, and
they're dropping like flies over there.
And Julie McNamara is going to take over for licensed exclusives, and Brian Thornson is going to oversee third-party content partnerships. So, and Bill Simons is going to have more of a focus on podcast monetization. Okay.
Hold on, breaking news.
Don't eat me, Tom Webster.
Tom Webster says, we need to talk about Todd's shirt and the perfect ratio of zipped to unzipped. It's like the golden mean. Yeah, I had it down pretty low earlier, so I moved it back up. Guess
Thank you, Todd, for
sparing
Tom
you
for changing the conversation.
sparing seeing my
hairy chest,
my gray-haired chest. So, going back to the Spotify thing, yeah, that's like people are bailing left and right. So
Does this mean? And I've been speculating this. I speculated a little bit of this on somewhere. I can't remember if it's Facebook or whatever, or LinkedIn or whatever. That maybe this is a sign that maybe Spotify is pulling back from exclusives and and licensed content a little bit. Maybe it's less of a priority if Max felt that you needed to move on to take on other more
Well-
innovative endeavors.
The question is, did Max leave on his own,
Right.
or did
Or-
Max say, okay, well, we're going to work on exit for you?
Right. Or Max is like going, well, not much more for me to do. It's time to find
Yeah,
find a new
you know,
project.
I've spent $1 billion, so time to go somewhere else and do something. Can you
So-
imagine having a checkbook to be able to spend $1 billion on deals? I
We'll
can't-
see.
I think I'd have to hire some people.
I mean, if you look at how much they've cut original content at Spotify just over the last 3 months, you have to say that that investment hasn't really panned out. And
Rob,
you have to look at what's happening at the economy too, because a lot of people are saying that advertising is still,
Rob, have you
man, but
have-
it's,
have you
I
have you
don't know.
checked the interest rates lately?
Yeah, and I think they're going to continue going up.
The
So-
the free money is gone, so
Yeah.
budgets are very, very tight. It's easy to finance something when you're at 1% or 1.5, or but when you're having to go out and do financing and it's 7%, or
And I saw that the National Public Radio folks have announced that they're going to cut 10% of their staff because they expect to have a $30 million revenue shortfall.
in my tech show that I do, I'm the slashes of employees nationwide across a wide variety of companies is through the roof. I don't know how the unemployment rate is not going up. It's major slashes of people all over the place. So I don't know if we're just starting to see the beginning of it. I know that the number of folks that are contacting me saying, "Hey, I'm looking for a job," has went up astronomically. I probably now get 50 a day direct emails from me from people that are either in marketing or sales or that are looking for work. And I would usually get like 2 a week before.
Right.
So, are you hiring? Are you hiring? Are you hiring? Are you hiring? And here's my resume. And headhunters contacting me, and not only
Oh,
headhunters contacting me for people that have experience in the podcasting space too, not just obscure people that have a marketing background, but people that have had podcast marketing experience and that kind of stuff. So the cuts are happening.
Yeah.
And some of them are onesie twosies that people you don't necessarily miss. Small companies, and I think we actually had one podcast hosting company said they were shutting down because I think they earned $200 a month or something like that. It was some number that they had that is. So I could potentially see some of these smaller hosts potentially be feeling the pinch pretty tight.
Yeah.
But we got a programmatic report in, and programmatic's still tracking. I'm not seeing a impact on programmatic.
What's the average CPM?
It all
range that
depends
you're
on
seeing?
it all depends on how long you've been running. The longer you run, the higher it goes. So, anyway, from 6
The
to
longer that you run a campaign,
the
that's what you're saying?
longer you're actually doing programmatic, the higher the CPMs end up being. It's just it's a weird thing.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Month 2, month 3, month 4, the numbers go up for specific shows. So shows are starting in 6 and 7, and then ending up it could be as high as 13 or 14 gross. So don't see much. That's pretty. You don't see too many of those 13s, but 11, 12s, those types of numbers. So, but the inventory is still pretty good. So that's the main thing. But again, if we go back to the magic number that we're checking every week, the data is still pretty flat. Let's see here.
It's not going up or down, is what you're saying.
Yeah, let me go over here and pull the report. Because I like looking at I can look at John's numbers. They are going up a little bit. But again, we've seen a little bit of a level off in the last 14 days. So, if we go back to, let's go to January 14th. And if we look at January 14th, there was about 259,000 shows that produced a new episode in the last, I think it's 30 days. And then, yeah, no. I'm on the wrong dealio. Let's go to 30 days. So I go back to January 15th. So if you go back to January 15th, there was 203,000. Oh, that's the wrong color. What? I want to be on red. I was on the right color to begin with. So in the last 30 days, January 4th, if we look at January, again, let me go back. 259,806 in the last 30 days around the 15th of January. If we go up to right now, it's up to 293,052. Actually, let me go back. I got to go back 30 days because the number's higher. So last 30 days. Let me go last 30, 14. Yep. So again, it's okay, but it's flat. No, I don't want that. Let me close this and get my other link because that's the one I really want. Do we guys bore you when we start talking metrics? Okay, where's
Oh, they're feverishly taking notes, Todd.
yeah, whatever. Where's my JSON report? Come on, Todd, find it. Not there, not there, not there, not there. I have way too many links. Okay, here we go. So what is going up is value for value feeds. Feeds with a value blocker, 12,130. That's, and I think that's probably us that's driving a bunch of new people in there. Okay, feeds. Okay, right now, feeds with new episodes in the last 30 days, 369,870. Hasn't changed much from last week. And then paid feeds with new episodes last 30 days is 273,453. So, again, pretty flat. Very, very flat.
Mm-hmm.
Total feed count 3.897 million. But again, we're it's just flat. Let's look at the last 7 days. 214,000, 10 days, 258, 14 days, 293. But again, the last 90-day number is still 497, 896. So nowhere near, 200,000 down from the summer, from last summer. So, yep,
Yeah.
pretty flat right now. We're still seeing an influx of new customers. But we're losing a few, too. My churn rate is up just a little bit, but not to be, like, freaking me out. So
Yeah.
there are a few people pulling the plug. And,
Oh, yeah.
again, I go back. This is a great time to be a content creator. If you're out there charging and moving forward, this is a great time to be a content creator.
Yeah, because things are a little bit flat. There's not as much noise in the market.
Yep.
And it's probably a little easier to stand out. But I think
For sure.
there are some unique challenges in this market right now, though, too. And there's so much, I guess, distrust
Oh, really? You think there's distrust?
of information online generally. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So if you can build that trust, I know I'm out there doing presentations talking about building trust with audiences, because I think that's really at the root of where the issues are as you look to people's relationship with media, just in general. Who do you trust, like you and I, over, let's say, a big media outlet? Do they trust real voices? Do they trust people that speak from the heart, see what's happening from the ground perspective? Maybe they're considered experts or whatever, but also have a way of building genuine pathways to people and trust. Do people trust what I say, what you and I say, Todd, on this show? Is the question, right?
Yeah, well, I don't know. We don't get anybody saying they don't, but again,
I mean, I don't trust what I'm being told in mainstream media right now. So where where do we put our trust of sources of information that can help us make better decisions in our lives? I
Well,
believe that's why people are moving over to watching more content on platforms like Rumble.
yeah, I don't know if that's. You'd have to give me some numbers on that as a trend, but I think that what we have found, ever really since the beginning of COVID, is that there is a segment of the population that absolutely, unequivocally does not, in any shape or form, trust mainstream media. And
As they probably should.
and there is a segment of the population that live and die by
in
mainstream
mainstream
media.
media. Right.
So those two worlds are the ones that are at conflict with each other now, mostly in this online dialogue. So here's what
So which direction is it moving? Is it moving away from mainstream media? Are audiences kind of giving up on?
I'm a lot more healthy in my brain when I do not listen to mainstream media.
Yeah, I feel like, I would agree. I think I've shifted away from mainstream media myself
So
personally.
all I can say is, as we are humans and we have an ability to think for ourselves, and I think we have to be able to, my sense of truth might not be the same sense of truth as yours, Rob, but I tell you what, I try to look at everything with a very discerning eye, because I don't hardly believe anything coming out of anybody's mouth. So,
But I am open to listen, and
I am, and come up with
open
my own opinion.
to accept other people's views and assess those,
Right.
and don't immediately bash them because
No.
they have a certain thought.
No,
I just have never thought that way. So,
I think
but I
there-
do think that many people have developed that kind of sensitivity.
I think the majority of at least the people in the United States are pretty center. I think there's this huge, a little bit of right, a little bit left. I think we all want our kids to go to school. We all put our pants on the same. We need to put grocery table. We have to pay the rent or pay the mortgage and our car payments. It's all pretty much the same. But then there is the where you live geographically. There's all these factors that factor into everything. And, I think from certain stuff, we're down the middle, but then, depending on your upbringing and your, social economic and what was afforded you, and there's all these things that this is why we're, in my opinion, still the greatest country on earth, is we have this diversity of opinions.
It'd be nice for us to hang on to that, wouldn't it?
And a lot of people are afraid to talk today. They're afraid to come out and say what they really feel. That's shifting a little bit, my mom is pretty, she's very, she just tells it the way it is, but she's in her 80s. She can do whatever the heck she wants, right? And
I'm not going to be around much longer, so it doesn't matter.
well, she'll be around till she's 100. That's
Right.
So I think that we just have to kind of be smart and listen, and be willing to hear opposing opinions. That's the beauty about podcasts. I don't want to listen to a podcast that is going to feed my brain with the same thing I absolutely unequivocally die hard believe in. I want to hear opposing views and dialogues, and I've said it many times on this show, Rob, with my grandfather, God rest his soul, when he played devil's advocate, it was the most exciting time to sit around and hear grown men jaw back and forth to each other, because it taught you that you have to sometimes to take an opposing view just to see how it plays out.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
So I think podcasts affords us that opportunity. People just have to be willing to listen to it. I don't think you're going to, YouTube channels stay pretty neutral. And the reason they stay pretty neutral is the majority of them, they have to make sure that they are not agonizing. Not agonizing is not the word. Antagonizing. Here's my great English. Antagonizing audience members. They have to be careful. And if you're running a political show, well, then you have a 50% audience.
Yeah.
But if you're running a political show and you have equal views on, that could be very exciting to listen to too. Truly two different views. I think
Left
it can,
and right podcast? Is that what you're trying to say, Todd?
yeah. If you can have
Is it
some,
possible to do that, without people coming to blows?
oh, there might be. there might be some expletives put together in those podcasts, but I think
Right.
someone should like point me out to
Keeps
a couple
people
of
listening. Keeps people listening. That's all I care about.
know,
They can swear at each other all they want.
those, but it's not brand safe,
Oh, that's
brand
right.
appropriate.
Sorry. Sorry about that.
But isn't that what we started podcasting for?
What, to
Isn't
be
it-
non-brand safe?
No, we started podcasting to be able to speak what's on our minds and our hearts, and to
Well, that's
Tell it the
kind of
way
what
it is.
podcasting is, isn't it?
yeah,
Is
that's what it is.
sharing your views and your thoughts and your expertise.
And be complete. We are just like talk shows. We are allowed to have an opinion, and that's that's the difference here. Is none of us are doing. This is the news, But if you think back to
That's for sure. Nobody's doing that anymore.
Right. But if you think back, and this would be a great analysis for someone to do, if someone went back and analyzed, let's just say 1 year of Walter Cronkite's commentary on the news and talked about the headlines, just did the research on the headlines he talked about during the day, and then look at what else was going on in the world that they didn't talk about, then we could make a determination: have we been brainwashed from the 60s or 70s? I think.
Yeah.
Oh, I just went on UPS for a second. Are we still online?
What, did you just lose power?
I had a little bit of a hit, but I've got the critical stuff on battery backup. So
Well, your signs behind you are still on.
yeah, those are on battery.
Oh, they are.
I hear maybe it's not this, but I hear a buzzer going on at some point. Well, we got 4 minutes left, so that's a good thing. I gotta have to go check and see, because I heard something go thump. Yeah, I don't know what is. Something's on UPS back there right now. It's I heard something thump, but I didn't see any lights blink here, so, and nothing's beeping here, so
It's an EMP.
it
Todd.
makes
That's
me
what
a little worried, because we have a video recording going on the other computer that's on a UPS. So it's a good thing we have 3 minutes left.
So, Todd, I'm going to be attending the Hot Pod Summit tomorrow
Oh,
in Brooklyn, and Kai Chuck, the head of podcasting for YouTube, is going to be there, and he's going to be presenting. So
well,
I'm
we'll
gonna
want to hear everything.
definitely,
Hear,
tap on his shoulder tomorrow.
hear everything he has to say.
Yep.
Should be entertaining. And maybe he won't say anything at all. Is he supposed to make some announcements?
He's on a session, so
Yeah.
maybe he's going to bring up a YouTube content creator and talk
Mm.
about how great podcasts are on YouTube. Who
Well,
knows?
like they did last time.
Right.
All right. Well, that'd be cool.
Who knows?
All right, I'm going to get us out of here before something shuts down in the other room, because I'm definitely on battery in the other room. I think it's the system that does the main recording. Something has happened. But, Rob, any final thoughts before we get out of here? Oh, Rob froze. Oh, you froze for a second.
I did.
All right, so let's get out of here. Any thoughts before we get out, though?
Nope. Just I'll have some stuff to talk about after seeing the Hot Pod Summit and the On Air Fest that's going on
All right.
Thursday, Friday, and Saturday in Brooklyn. Yeah.
Should be fun. I'll be watching your Twitter feed. Of course, it'll be covered by all the major podcast news folks, I'm sure.
Right.
All right, I'm Todd at Blueberry.com, at Geek News on Twitter. Of course, we want you to boost this show, so go over to podcastapps.com or newpodcastapps.com. Same place. Grab yourself a Fountain Podverse Cast-O-Matic podcast app and start supporting the show. I probably missed one there. I apologize. Rob?
Yeah, I can be found on Twitter as well, at Rob Greenlee, and robgreenlee.com. And if you want to send me an email, you can send it to robg@podbean.com, and probably be able to see you at Podcast Movement coming up. I'm going to be there the whole time, 7th through the 10th, so we'd love to catch up with you or stop by and say hi to the Podbean booth, and if you happen to be at Hot Pod tomorrow. So anyway.
Be at Podcast Movement as well. So, by the way, if you don't understand what this Valley for Valley stuff is, you're missing out. We're having a lot of fun with it. So definitely come on board and play along. If you've got value out of this show today and value has delivered something to your brain, we also have a PayPal link for those of you that aren't playing in that realm. There's a PayPal link at newmediashow.com. So please follow the show over there. And we'll be back Wednesday for another edition of the New Media Show. Everyone take care. See you next time. All right. Bye. Rob, I'm going to run real quick and make sure we don't lose a recording. Hang on.